Iran and Saudi Arabia have agreed to resume diplomatic relations and reopen their embassies in a deal brokered by China. Senior officials from both of those Middle Eastern countries held talks in Beijing in an effort to bridge the divide between those long-time regional rivals. Here are the main statements from the delegations at the talks.
The talks this time have fully combed through the merits of the disputes between Saudi Arabia and Iran and explored effective ways to resolve disputes. Saudi Arabia hopes that this will open a new chapter in bilateral ties under the architecture of a brotherly relationship.
China has provided favorable conditions for reaching this agreement. This is a vivid demonstration of the basic policies and concepts of China's diplomacy, which includes the major initiative of building a community with a shared future for mankind. Iran firmly supports the relevant initiatives.
The improvement of the relationship of both sides has paved the way for peace and stability in the Middle East. It has also set an example for resolving conflicts and disputes between countries through dialogue and negotiations. China supports countries in the Middle East to adhere to strategic autonomy, strengthen unity and cooperation, get rid of external influence, and truly have in their hands the future and destiny of the Middle East.
Great news for the Middle East and the whole world as Iran and Saudi Arabia finally decided to break the ice and resume their diplomatic ties after 7 years of frosty relations. Well, the agreement came on Friday and it was reached in the Chinese capital, Beijing, after several days of intensive negotiations between Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Shamkhani, and his Saudi counterpart in the Chinese capital, Beijing. Of course, Saudi Arabia severed its diplomatic ties with Iran back in January 2016 after angry Iranian protesters stormed the Saudi embassy in Tehran following the Riyadh's execution of top Shia cleric Nimr Bagher and Nimr, and that led to the end of the diplomatic ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran, where the two sides closed their embassies in the two countries. Well, of course, now this new development is very promising, is a promising step towards ensuring stability and security and peace in the Middle East, as the two sides have been always at loggerheads when it comes to many regional issues after the rise and the emergence of Daesh terrorists, ISIS terrorists in the region, and the chaos that took place inside Syria and Iraq. The two sides have been at on different fronts, of course. And when it comes to the Saudi war on Yemen, Iran backs the Yemeni Ansarullah movement, and Iran backs political resolution to the Yemeni conflict, while Saudi Arabia has been attacking Yemen. So all of those developments will be resolved, all of those issues will be resolved following the new agreement between Riyadh and Tehran. So this is a very great step, and we heard that the two sides decided to reopen their embassies within the next 2 months.
We heard from Wang Weng, Executive Dean of China's Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies. He says the U.S. is a major cause of instability in the Middle East, so increasingly more countries have been trying to distance themselves from U.S. policies.
It's a very, very important event in not only in Middle East, but also in China foreign policy. China hopes that not only the two countries, but also all the countries in the Middle East could develop by themselves. For Washington, they should rethink themselves. Why now in the world, there are more and more people never trust Washington any longer. U.S. is a main driver of new regional instability and conflict, not only in Middle East but also in Eastern Europe. Because in the past 40 years, the United States has launched a lot of wars in the world. In Middle East, at least 1 million people have died under the fire of the United States. So now, gradually, people know the world very clearly, so-called hegemony of the United States. should be end as soon as possible.
When asked to comment on the development, US President Joe Biden seemed to shift focus to other countries in the region.
What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia and Iran reestablishing diplomatic relations, sir?
The better the relations between Israel and their Arab neighbors, the better for everybody.